Lightning Lee Murray had a promising start to his UFC career after taking down big-name fighters like Jorge Rivera, but his legacy will forever be tainted. The English-Moroccan man took part in one of the biggest robberies in history, stealing over 53 million pounds, or 63.7 million USD, with his lifelong best friend and a group of petty thieves. The heist and Murray's life seem like they come straight out of a Hollywood action movie, and funny enough, the UFC is making a documentary of his story. So, who is Lee Murray? His mother worked as a hairdresser and met his father, a kitchen hand, in Morocco. Lee Brahim Murray Lamrani was born on November 12, 1977, in Plumstead, England. A few years later, his younger sibling Rakia was born. The small family seemed happy enough, and Murray eventually started attending Foxfield Primary School. While here, he met the love of his life, Saban Rowlings, who would later become his wife. The years he attended Foxfield were also Murray's first introduction to delinquency and crime. He joined a small gang of young kids, and they described themselves as the Buttmarsh Boys, after the surrounding areas they were from. Initially, their goal started off as noble. They wanted to protect Buttmarsh, but soon the group dissolved, getting into petty fights with similar gangs. At that stage of life, Murray was a scrawny, skinny kid who didn't get along very well with his father, Brahim Lamrani. The two had a rocky relationship from the get-go, since Brahim was away for the majority of Murray's childhood. He was working in the Canary Islands, near Morocco, until he could officially move to England. When he did, he frequently drank and was hostile towards his boy. They butted heads as Brahim instantly wanted Lee to obey and respect him, but he refused to listen. It got so bad between them that Murray eventually fought back against his domineering dad. Brahim was enraged and got violent with his son one night, but as soon as he struck the boy, Murray immediately swung back. The force knocked his father out cold. This moment was pivotal for the future UFC fighter. He now knew he could fight back and win, even if his opponent seemed unbeatable. Not long after this fight, Brahim moved out of the family's home, leaving Murray's mother to raise him and his sibling by herself. Around the same time, now as a young man, Lee started attending a new school, the Eagles Field Boys School. One of the boys there caught his eye. They had a lot in common and quickly hit it off, becoming fast and lifelong friends. That boy's name was Paul Allen, and he'd eventually help Murray in the heist of the century. Continuing down his wayward path, Lee was expelled from Eagles Field after teachers could no longer tolerate his poor behavior. He switched to a new institution to finish out his required years of schooling, but he showed little interest in education. Instead, the young man joined a new, more serious gang that dealt with drugs and turf wars. This behavior soon landed him in juvenile detention at the Feltham Young Offenders Institution. Here, he started lifting weights and putting much of his energy into building up his athleticism. By the time he got out, Murray had earned the nickname the Enforcer. He was no longer the skinny little kid. He was now a 6-foot-tall, chiseled force of nature. On December 5th, 1999, he won his first official fight at the Millennium Brawl. He was up against amateur MMA fighter Rob Hudson. Lee went into the ring without a shred of fear and knocked Rob out in one round. His moves were so quick that he earned the title Lightning Lee Murray. At this point, his career picked up, and for once in his life, he started taking things seriously. Lee joined a few gyms, Peacocks, which was known for training experienced boxers, and London Shoot Fighters, who specialized in wrestling. In 2000, the young man competed in 4 different professional matches. He won against Mike Tomlinson in the Ring of Truth match, and ended a fight with Danny Rushton with a no contest ruling. Then, just a few months later, he faced Chris Albondia in the United States during the Extreme Challenge 34 match, and he came out on top. He claims that he grew a bit cocky in his last fight since he was in the finals. Murray said his excitement made him lose focus and lose against Joe Dirksen. Even though his career prospects were improving, Murray never lost the sight of him that strayed towards trouble. In London 2002, he got into an argument with the infamous Tito Ortiz. Ortiz at that time held the title of UFC light heavyweight champion. The men started arguing, and Murray claims he knocked the champion out. Of course, Ortiz denies this, but either way, the two had bad blood now. In the match that marked his official entrance into the UFC, Murray easily beat an established big name in the fighting world, Jorge Rivera. The fight took place in Las Vegas, but little did the UFC know Lee was having legal issues with the status of his American visa. The problems came from his former arrests and involvement with a road rage assault back back in London. He signed on for the Cage Rage promotional fights, without realizing his days in the ring were coming to an end. The young fighter went to a birthday party on September 28, 2005. The celebration was for his friend, Lauren Pope, who worked as a model in the UK. That night, Murray got into another fight. This one was much more serious, though. After getting stabbed, Lee's artery was severed, and he had a punctured lung. Doctors did everything they could to bring him back to life in the hospital. During his treatment, they resuscitated him multiple times, and he even flatlined for a few minutes. Miraculously, they saved him. Murray was now reminded of one thing: he wasn't invincible. Before we move on, what do you think of Murray's life story so far? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to You So Crazy if you're liking it so far. After a huge injury, it was clear Murray would have a hard time returning to the ring. At this point, he joined his friend Paul Allen and some others to hatch a plan for the heist of the century. Their target was a securities depot in Tunbridge, England. This facility contained hundreds of millions of British pounds and was heavily guarded. It's estimated that over 25% of the money for London, one of the biggest cities in the world, ran through the depot, and Murray wanted a cut. The group of criminals methodically mapped out every detail of their plan over months. They knew the facility was located near 3 police substations and was carefully watched by hundreds of security cameras. This meant that their execution had to be perfect to ensure success. One of the men involved, Amir Hizanaj, took one for the team. He took a security guard job at the depot and was able to secretly wear a camera inside, recording the inner layout of the property. Once they knew what the interior looked like, they focused on another issue: how to get inside the facility without setting off alarms. For this, the criminals saw a solution to their problem: Colin Dixon. On February 21, 2006, Colin was on his way home from work at the Securitas Depot. He had a key position there as the acting manager. As he drove down the road, blinding blue lights from the vehicle behind him prompted him to pull over. A police officer walked up to him and asked the man to step out of the car. Here's the twist though, it wasn't actually a cop at all. One of the thieves was wearing a fake uniform with a badge he'd bought online. The group hired a prosthetics artist to disguise their identities with makeup too. As Dixon got out of the car, 2 cops put him into handcuffs. The depot manager knew he hadn't done anything wrong, and he was suspicious, so the men threatened him with a gun, ordering him to comply. Meanwhile, Dixon's wife and children were also being rounded up. The whole family was brought to a secluded farm where the thieves, including Murray, questioned them about the depot. Afterwards, 7 people, including Dixon, drove to Securitas. The manager walked in with one of the heist members, who was still wearing his police disguise. The 2 were instantly led into the facility by an employee without question. After gaining clearance, the phony cop hit a button to let the rest of his group in. They all donned plastic ski masks and held powerful guns. 14 workers were in the building during the night shift, and Dixon, with guilt in his eyes, simply told the employees that the thugs had his family. There was nothing he could do. The depot workers did as they were ordered and turned off the security system. Thanks to Amir's mapping of the facility, they were able to quickly strip the vault of £53 million, or 63.7 million in USD. It took them only 40 minutes. They only stopped because the truck they brought to transport the cash was filled to the brim. So once they had what they came for, the thieves fled the depot in their getaway truck. The employees were left tied up inside. Police were eventually notified after one of Dixon's children escaped and called authorities. Murray and his group might have gotten away with the heist, but the sheer amount of money stolen sent the crime soaring into international headlines. Everyone in the world was talking about what they did. This put tremendous pressure on British law enforcement to find the suspects. The makeup artist who made the prosthetic disguises for the robbers made a plea deal with police to help identify the rest of the group in return for fewer charges. By the time they realized Lee Murray played a major role in one of the UK's biggest heists, he had already left the country and escaped to Morocco. Since his father was a citizen there, Murray was technically a Moroccan national. The country didn't have an extradition agreement with the UK back then, so for a short period of time it seemed the former UFC fighter and his friend Alan were in the clear. They spent 5 months living the high life. The 2 spent millions of dollars on luxury goods, a giant mansion, cars, and anything they wanted basically. But then, on June 25, 2006, a crowd of Moroccan police officers swarmed the mall Murray and Allen were shopping at. The men fought off as many people as they could, but the number of law enforcement ultimately took them out. Finally, they were in police custody for his crimes. Lee Murray was initially given 10 years behind bars, but due to a failed prison escape, he was handed an additional 15 years. The legendary fighter is currently serving time, but claims he'll one day return to the fighting ring. Well, what do you think about Murray's heist? Would you watch a movie made about it? Let us know in the comments down below. And subscribe to You So Crazy to see more videos like this. We'll see you later.